greenhouse people? We are back with another episode of Tech on Demand, where our goal is to help you grow your best crops ever. I'm your host, Bill Calkins, and throughout 2026, I've been catching up with different people in the professional horticulture space, find out a little bit about their careers, passions, journeys in the world of plants, and much more. I'm calling these conversations Pick 4 because I sent each guest a list of 12 questions, and they picked 4. So today I am excited to be joined by Samuel Dorito, a grower and social media manager at Collier's Greenhouse and Garden Center in Georgia. He actually reached out to me and said he was ready to pick 4 questions and let me pick his brain, which is really cool. Samuel, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's been great to listen to and, kind of catch up with guys in the industry.
For sure. And I'm excited because I know that you picked some good questions. But before we get into the questions, I got a couple things about you that I want to dig into. So first off, you're an Auburn grad, right?
War Eagle, yes.
There you go. I knew that was coming. And a Navy veteran.
Tour with the Navy and was lucky to be stationed in Hawaii. So I had the dream of all dreams.
There you go. Well, thanks for your service.
Thank you.
I do want to ask you, what's one thing you learned during your time in the Navy that you think is applicable to what you do now at the greenhouse?
So day one, when you report to the ship, you're kind of put in charge of division, 30 guys and gals, and you really in charge of, you really affect their lives. Day one, there's a lot of learning. You learn from the senior guys, the chiefs, but that middle management kind of deal. Leading a team, you got a mission, you got a task, you've got maintenance projects, you've got all the good stuff along with your personal qualifications, stuff you need to learn, and then being able to day one speak to very senior people. So the communication aspect and then the kind of middle management, the leadership portion is almost to be expected day one.
That's impressive. So how did those 18-year veterans take to you as a young guy coming in?
You got to be humble, and you don't know everything. I mean, you're in a school. I'm in Auburn. I did the ROTC program there. A couple of stops along the way, some training classrooms and stuff. But the hands-on in the fleet is totally different than the schoolhouse. So there's a lot to learn, and you want to really pick their brains, and they'll show you. They're not going to lead you astray. Show you like, hey, they might pull you aside. Hey, I would have done that a little different this way. Hey, this guy's got some stuff going at home. He needs to leave a little early. So a lot of the personal skills that you learn, and then the professional skills of formal briefing, formal presentations, even, how you write an email, how you, speak to somebody's seniors, even how you pick up the phone and talk to somebody. So you learn a lot of those, and, coming out, I've never really had a problem. Nobody's too big. I know how to kind of speak to just about anybody's level. I don't want to say bragging, but not shy away from, pick up the phone and speak to the sales rep or even the sales manager who's in charge of the rep that, hey, we had this issue. We got to get this fixed, to be able to speak through those issues. Pretty easy kind of day one when I got back into the family business.
This episode of Tech on Demand is brought to you by Prospient, delivering world-class greenhouse structures and systems. From innovative design and architecture to site development and project budgeting, the Prospient team provides the expertise to bring your vision to life. With local manufacturing across the U.S. and Canada, Prospient offers the scale and supply chain reliability you can trust, making them one of North America's largest manufacturers of commercial greenhouses. Prospient, leaders in greenhouse design, manufacture, and build. Learn more and connect with the expert team at prospient.com. No, that's true. That makes sense to me. I think that's probably really, really good experience to come back with. And so you just mentioned it, but Collier's is a third generation?
I'm the third,
right,
yes.
That? Okay, so founded by your grandparents, right?
Definitely, yes.
So I don't want to preempt any of our 4 questions, but I'm wondering, what's something that's really awesome about being in a family business, and then maybe something that's challenging?
I mean, I get to go to work, and I have 2 kids. I have a 3-year-old and then a 3-month-old. So, my wife and the kids, they come to work with me now. My 3-year-old, from the time my wife went back to work, she got to go with me every day. So she had both grandparents and her great grandma there. So that was really good. We didn't have the child care aspect of anything. So that's very beneficial. And then, I go work with my parents and my grandma. My grandma signs my paycheck. So I don't know how many people can say that.
It's true.
But it's a pretty cool aspect. And then getting to see, our name kind of build from, what my grandparents started.
It's awesome. So what's something that's challenging? Because it can't be all
It's challenging.
unicorns and rainbows. It's family.
Yeah, some days you just gotta like, hey, I gotta go, turn it off. Luckily I don't live on the property like my grandparents and my parents do. So
Okay.
I can go home, when needed. I
Yeah.
wish, so there's times, I love being there. I don't even think about it as a job. I go to my grandparents. I go to my parents.
Yeah. It's cool.
So, but there's times where you just got to turn work off. We try to do a good thing. We try to do family dinners and try to turn off work, as much as we can in the busy season in the spring. Not as often as we like, but
Right.
in the off season, it's, just about every weekend, every other weekend.
Good. Good. Now that sounds great. It sounds like a good dynamic. I know just from working with so many family businesses for so many years, I know sometimes there can be tension, but it sounds like you guys are doing it the right way, and that's really really good to hear. And I love that your kids are involved, or at least there. Right? I mean,
Oh
I think
yes.
that's a good place for kids to be, especially that 3-year-old. So that's awesome. All right. Lastly, you are a finalist for the 2023 Green Profit Young Retailer World Award and have written a few articles for the magazine. And I'll put some links to those in the show notes. But how was that experience?
That was awesome. And I mean, it's kind of my intro to the, big picture horticulture world, trying to get I got my footing back when I got back out of the Navy into the horticulture world. And I was working with, family. I was like, wanting to, explore. I've always seen the videos and the cultivate. And I was like, man, I got to go. And, that was a way it stepped me into it and, opened up a lot of opportunities. I didn't win, but being a finalist, you get the same experience, all
Oh,
the
yeah.
networking, all the people I meet. I called a buddy today. I was like, hey, how do you do this for Mother's Day coming up? Just the networking that I didn't have because of the gap of, horticulture wasn't really my thing or my focus in school. So I don't have those
Yeah.
connections. And then the Navy gap as well. So a really easy way to find connections. And I love, contributing and helping the horticulture world and give back for what it's given to me.
That's cool. Well, we were very excited to have you as a finalist. I remember going through the applications and the nominations, and yeah, you were definitely one of the awesome ones. So, all right, ready to get into the 4 questions?
Let's do it.
All right. Question number 1: what was your first exposure to horticulture, and how did you feel, react, and respond?
So my first exposure was I was 10 days old. That's kind of what my parents say. I was 10 days old when I, first went to the greenhouse. So it's kind of a unique story when people ask how many years of experience I got. I always say 30 and they look at me crazy because I'm about to turn 31. We use that as a kind of an opening or a little joke to get the conversation started. Growing up in the business was super awesome, kind of learning it from playing in the dirt. There's pictures to, learning the transplanting, because as a grower retailer, we got to do kind of the back of the house stuff and learn all that in the back and then transition to the front and, the bigger picture stuff that I do now.
That's cool. So you went to college, you did not major in horticulture.
I
Right.
did not. I did, it's about as close as I could. The Navy wanted a big engineering degree, and I was like, I'll settle for biosystems engineering, a fancy name for ag engineering. And,
Okay.
so I still had
So
the soil sciences and some stuff like that. And any chance I could volunteer, irrigation was kind of my focus, or, some of my senior design stuff as well.
okay. So in the back of your head, coming back into the family business was in the plan?
It was. I thought I was going to spend a little bit more time in the Navy than I did, but just opportunities presented itself. My granddad passed away when I was in the Navy, and I just see the need, and the first chance I got to get back to the business, I took it.
Okay. Oh, that makes sense. All right. Question number 2. What is something about professional horticulture that annoys you, and how would you change it?
This was my favorite question I think I picked. So the shipping aspect, as a grower retailer, we're buying in plugs, we're buying in liners. The shipping aspect, like just as soon as a box comes, we're not as big to get grower trucks as often as I wish we could. So you're getting the FedEx, the UPS boxes, and I just have my phone on standby, ready to take pictures when we crack open the boxes. I wish that was a better way. I know we've gone a long way to get better. How we package, how we don't try to overstuff boxes. Down count where we can, but just the turnover, the damage from the shipping aspect, and they don't know anything about plants. I mean, there's
Right.
arrows on boxes, but doesn't seem to help. So if I could change it, I mean, I think we need to go to more like the grower trucks, the hand deliveries. I know Ball, when they went to the Culta Freight and
Uh-huh.
taking out the big warehouse portions of it, a little bit more hand-to-hand pass off of
Yeah.
plants and stuff is definitely way better. And then even kind of big picture on trees and shrubs, going to rack deliveries versus the old, leaning stacks has definitely been a good idea. I know it's a lot faster. Um, and people that leave carts, I don't like leaving the carts around, so I send them back as quick as I can. But it just protects the plants, better product, immediately.
Yeah. No, and I think that's a hardcore grower answer is my boxes are coming in, being kicked and footballed down the road, showing up with busted liners, and that is not uncommon. I hear it all the time, and I wish there was a better solution. You're right. I think grower truck is getting better, and I think putting together those networks is like every distribution company is really working on that. But yeah, it's tough. Yeah, I don't know what the solution is, but hopefully it keeps getting a little bit better year to year.
Definitely.
All right, third question. What advice would you give to a young person considering pursuing a career in horticulture? Besides like fixing the shipping issue. I mean, that would be a great thing. I would think a young person come in, solve the boxed plugs and liners situation. Beyond that, what advice are you giving to a young person
Just be ready
coming in?
coming in, be ready to learn. It's such a huge industry. I know y'all talk about it all the time on different podcasts and stuff that I was like, man, I didn't even know that was kind of a thing we could do in horticulture,
Mhm.
or a thing we do. So just be ready to learn. I started off, and even in kind of the high schools, loading the bags, learning all the bag materials, learning why do we use this much soil, or why do we use this soil, learn by doing. Don't be afraid of dirt. It's not the industry for you if you're afraid of dirt. So, get in there, get dirty, and that's how you really learn. So, hands-on job, and there's always people in the industry to answer your questions. So, if I don't know anything, I've always picked up the phone, asked, hey, what is your recommendation on this? Or how do you do this? And everybody's, grateful to share their ideas and, what's worked for them. So that's been really good for me, kind of as a younger person in the industry. But I think it's like one of the best, like, high school jobs that you can do. You're out and about. You're not stuck, beeping a cash register, but you can still do the customer service thing if you want to, kind of pursue that aspect. Or if you don't want to do the customer service thing, kind of be on the grower side as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's all great advice. And it's funny, yesterday, my youngest daughter, who's 16, picked up an application at our local garden center.
That's
And it's
awesome.
sitting upstairs on the counter, and it made me really happy. Reminded me that I got to call AJ Petiti and tell him that he's got a potential employee that's going to put in an application, and hopefully she gets some favoritism. But yeah, no, I agree. I think it's a great job. When I worked at the garden center, I managed a lot of high school kids, and just they were not afraid of hard work. But they learned a lot. And I think it goes back to what you talked about earlier with the people skills, the communication. There's a lot that you can learn in a garden center, especially because you're going to wear a lot of different hats. I mean, very, very rarely at a garden center or greenhouse are you just doing one thing the whole time. So I
Definitely.
think
And kind of what we do, bring in like a high schooler, just, I grab me a football player that can lift and load. And then the guy I got this year is super awesome and he's wanting to learn. So, explaining like, hey, we recommend this soil for this reason, or this plant for this reason. And, when we can, I kind of, show them different plants and, kind of show them, the more of the bigger picture stuff. Our trees and shrubs are kind of out front. So it's a little bit easier to show them that. And then, we'll get into the, more vegetative stuff on the inside.
yeah, no, I think our industry is really good, like you said, about mentoring and answering questions. And there's always someone who's willing to help you out if you need something. So I think that's really good advice. Final question. And I'm really interested to hear your answer to this one because I feel like you love your job. So what do you love most about your job?
The people. I know we've kind of hit that on just about every question, but the people from the industry veterans. We've had the same sales rep from Ball since I was like little, so he's seen me like grow up, and now he knows it's my cell phone number calling. So that's pretty cool to kind of learn from
Who's your
that.
rep? Is it Nathan? Nathan
Nathan,
King?
Nathan,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh man, a
so,
legend.
legend. So he's known me from where I couldn't even walk.
Mhm.
So and then to now, so it's pretty cool to kind of do that full circle. The people, the industry, getting to meet people that cultivate, and then learning all the different growers, all the sales reps that I deal with when I'm ordering trees and shrubs that we outsource, even the liners and stuff. It's just awesome to be connected with those people, and then the customers. So doing the social media kind of aspect of my job, people kind of put my face with the business. I try to get my parents, my grandparents on the social media, not their thing, but they'll have an idea that'll go crazy. So kind of works both ways there. So they help me out a lot with that. They don't want to be on the screen, but they always have good at it. Hey, take this picture and kind of push this plant a little bit, and then it'll go crazy. So
That's
it's always
cool.
good there. And then, like I said, the customers, getting to help them, with their landscape. And there's a lot of education you can provide. That first time homeowner that has no clue, but they know they don't want, these shrubs that the builder put in that's already dead, and they
Yeah.
have, limited education of, what kind of soil, or, are they afraid to touch the soil because it's red clay, or even how to grow. Everybody wants to try their hand in, veggie gardening. So
Mhm.
all the different aspects there. And then you have that customer you can keep building year after year. And then you can get into the weeds of how to read a soil sample, or what fertilizers we need to use, or what chemicals that you recommend. So just the education component. And then getting to see the same people year after year, because that's they've recognized me growing up through the years, and then I can kind of see them now too. So year after year, like, hey, how did your plants work last year? What do you want to try different this year? Or, hey, I really think you should, check out this new hydrangea, or this new annual that we got. Or, hey, I remember that you wanted some red, so I got extra red. And here in Georgia, red and black sells a
Mhm.
lot.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. Not necessarily Auburn colors, but Georgia Bulldog colors.
Definitely.
Well, that's really, really cool. And you picked some tough questions, but I don't know. I was looking back and I did read your Young Retailer Award essay. I don't know if any of these questions were as tough as that, because the question was about how to overcome seasonality. And I don't know if you remember thinking about that and writing about that back in the day, but it was a few years ago. But it was about like overcoming seasonality. And you talked about the benefits of being a grower retailer, like a hybrid business, and then the power of social media. And I will put a link to that essay in the show notes. But I'm interested, just to follow up real quick while we're talking about the social media strategy. You talked a little bit about, the fact that it's your face on the social, using your ideas and others. But what does your social media strategy or platforms look like these days? Because I know
Um,
it's a tough one for a lot of garden centers. I think there's a million options out there of social media to explore, but it's a kind
and
of a tough one to figure out what works.
it is, and I'm by no means am the expert, or what I think is the best in the garden center world. But you got to be consistent. So
Mm,
if you're a garden center out there and you don't have a social media, you're behind. And it's so easy. I say, like, to my friends in the community or stuff that have businesses, I would say it's easier for a garden center. We're a visual industry.
sure.
Boom. Walk down the aisle and take a picture of what looks good. Take a
Mhm.
picture of that red geranium. Take a picture of that blooming echinacea. Your tomato plants are looking good. Take those pictures and just at bare minimum post the pictures. And
Yeah.
then, educate. My buddy Michael Fiore, Smith's Garden Town out in Texas. He is the education guru on social media. So he's a great resource to check out his videos. And I'm always, kind of double checking and getting some ideas from him as well. 30 seconds. Hey, if your plant looks like this, do this. Or if you have a shady spot, we recommend this. Or here's my pick three. And I think social media right now is going to more of the videos versus the pictures, that quick attention grab, and just something to stop the scroll. So it's really easy, I think, with the visual industry we're in. And then on the grower side, I can kind of, leverage kind of the behind the scenes that not everybody gets to see. So in the off
Yeah.
season, my social media looks a little different. It's not a bright blooming hanging basket. It's how I plant that hanging basket, how many
Mhm.
liners or plugs I'm putting in that basket, or how we make our own soil, or how we use the soil machine, and then kind of that side, or how we sow 288 seeds at one time. So, I
Yeah.
mean, it's pretty cool to kind of see the behind the scenes, and you build that foundation, in the off season, when behind the scenes, keep that momentum going, and then boom, you got color, and, you know, make sure you have enough on the bench when you take that picture, because it's going to sell.
That's cool. And do people come into the store and mention the social, like that they saw what was
Yeah,
going on?
yeah, it's kind of funny sometimes. Like, you'll see the dads or the husbands come in with a screenshot that their wife has sent them, and
Nice.
then
Oh yeah.
they just hold the phone up. It's like, I need this. My wife sent me to pick up this. So, you kind of got to remember, like, oh, I posted an easy one recently that I had do pretty well, was Peggy Martin roses. Kind of caught fire. I was able to bring in a bunch of them, and even today, like, I had a couple had a screenshot, and they're like, hey, you're the guy on social media. And so that's pretty cool to kind of see that. And I was able to kind of show them where the roses were, and then talk through and help them pick out a good one to take home.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. I am also, yeah, my wife sends me a lot of screenshots of stuff.
Yeah, and
You
that's
need to
what,
go. You need to go and get. I like
it's
that.
it's super easy, when they can do that, and it's really helpful.
Hmm.
Kinda, they're not just looking like, "Where's the red geraniums?" And they just screenshot, hold me a picture up, boom. I know
Yep.
what I posted kinda recently, and then we can kinda show them right where it's at.
No, that's really good. That's really good. And what you said is absolutely correct. It's consistency, to have fun with it, use the visual side of our industry. You're right. I mean, we have beautiful stuff. It does stop the scroll when you're on Instagram and boom, big blooms. Yeah, people are going to stop
And
and
reach
look.
out. I mean, there's people in the industry, kinda behind the scenes, the fertilizer folks. I know Mason
Hmm.
and the J.R. Peters team. I mean, they're willing to help any way they can. They send me some shirts. I throw the shirt on, boom, Jack's Fertilizer flying out of there. So
Yeah.
give a plug to them. And then, any of our reps, if they see that, they're willing to help. They can answer questions like, hey, so reach out if you're, a garden center to your reps. They've got a social media marketing team behind the scenes too. So they
Yep.
can kind of show you what works or give you some ideas or send you, promotional items and stuff too. So any bit helps.
Oh, and I can vouch for that as having worked in marketing for a company, a supplier in the industry, in those kind of getting that reach out, those kind of requests, like you love that because that's like what you're there for. It's way more exciting than posting your own, stuff out into a black hole of social media when you can put your products through your retailer's lens to their customers. That's where everybody shines. It's a
Definitely,
really
and
good point.
any of the big brands that, Colorful Pot folks,
Oh yeah.
all over the industry. I mean, they've got marketing departments way bigger than any independent garden center
Yeah.
probably has. Reach out to them, and if, you got questions, definitely lean on them.
No, I like that. That's great advice. I think that's a good way to wrap this one up. Although I do feel like we can talk all day, but it's evening, and I know we both have families we should probably go tend to. But hey, Samuel, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.
I'm glad you reached out. I wish more people would. There you go. There's a plug. All you got to do is reach out, and we will have a conversation because love talking to anybody in the industry, and you bring some very unique perspectives. I really appreciate it. Hey, take care. Have a great rest of your spring, even though it's almost summer in your area, right?
It's getting there. It's getting there.
Awesome. Well, I think that this wraps up our episode of Tech on Demand. I cannot close without reminding you to subscribe, like, share the podcast with your peers. There are just about 250 episodes now in the archive covering a wide range of topics. It's really something for everyone in professional horticulture, garden center retail, landscape, CEA production, and more. Take care out there.